When sentiment is low, when nobody cares about it anymore, think about how everyone was feeling 18 months ago when Bitcoin was down at 20 grand. Look at the opportunity from all of the assets, the growth we've seen in that 18 months. We didn't feel like we're in like a bull market. We feel like we're just coming out of a bear market.
So Standard Chartered, they've essentially launched spot crypto trading for institutional clients, which is massive because they're one of the first institutions to do so. G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tap Into Crypto. My name's Ted and I'm joined by a familiar face, Mr. Tommy Honan. Welcome back, friend.
I'm back after a 7 to 8 week hiatus.
Yeah, I mean, you're not looking too good for the 10 episodes this year, so I reckon you got to squeeze a few more in. But
what am I on now?
2 or 3 or something?
Nah, be 5.
All right, we'll have to go back and look at the
all right.
look at the records. But mate, it's good to have you back.
Good to be back, man. I'm excited. You know, wheel me in when shit goes south.
Yeah,
shit's going south at the moment. So
yeah, look.
Let's
we had Chris last week because both yourself and Pav were unavailable,
right?
And so let's hope we don't have to do that again.
I love Chris on the podcast.
Chris is hilarious, and he just brings a different sort of energy to the podcast, which I'm sure the listeners can appreciate. But mate, we've got your insanely great insights back this week, so.
I don't know about that, but yeah, look, sure. We it's been an interesting kind of week in the market. It's been an interesting few months in the markets. Quite boring. A lot of sideways chop for a period of time now. Waiting for the market to make a decision for, again, a couple of months probably.
Yep.
It's made a decision over the last couple of hours, really.
Yep.
12 hours we've made a decision. Bitcoin has kind of sold off 5%, putting us under 60k US for the first time in about 4.5 weeks.
Yep.
But the way it's kind of happened has been quite volatile. So yeah, that's something that I think, a lot of people were kind of waiting for the market to make that decision. It's made it now. Mm-hmm. And there's some kind of news catalysts globally that are kind of potentially paying into it that I think we'll speak to in a minute.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's the key news to cover off on the market this week. Bitcoin below 60k. Wanted to touch on a few reasons for this. Like Pav always brings up the ETF inflows, outflows. Yep. So I thought we'd look at that first. And it's not looking good. So looking in this total column, this kind of combines all the asset manager ETFs combined. And you'll see in the last sort of week and a half, you're basically seeing just all red, like
outflows.
Yeah, all outflows. So all pretty much selling Bitcoin, which is obviously going to have a impact on the price. So the most recent day we have was outflows of 105 million. Before that, 139 million. So yeah, it's been a while since we've had a couple of good days of inflows. The Mt. Gox news. I think me and Chris touched on this last week, and I think we actually got it wrong where we said we thought it was already out. So it's not, the repayments aren't set to start until July. But obviously, that's in less than a week now. And so, I think people are probably getting a bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around that. Obviously, there's $9 billion in repayments that they got to offer users who were essentially involved in the hack of Mt. Gox.
Not an insignificant amount.
Yes, quite a large amount, and obviously, like people who were hacked then had money on the exchange, or had Bitcoin. Now they're getting repaid, and it's been 10 years. The price of Bitcoin has changed considerably, to the upside. So, if it was me, I'd probably look to sell off a bit. And
there's an assumption people will take some risk off the table. They've been waiting 10 years for it. So.
But you told me just before this, you got a bit of a story of Mt.
Gox. I mean, it's not much of a story. It's I did have Bitcoin on Mt. Gox up to about 2 weeks before it collapsed. So
Mystic Tommy.
I wouldn't go that far. So I had a similar actually case with Cryptopia in New Zealand before they collapsed. Again, it was about a month before. I think I was buying some like speculative coins on Cryptopia. They had a lot of early stage listings at that point, so I got pretty close with that one. But
do you just get a
just follow my wallets?
Yeah,
I'll post the addresses of all my wallets today. No, I won't. But no, look, it's just a bit of luck, mate. Definitely not no great insights there. Some
Oh,
new options were coming on the market at the right time to start to move funds around, I think, really. So
yeah, interesting. Well, I'm assuming there'll be a lot of happy people who did lose a few Bitcoin on that exchange, now worth a lot more, considering they probably would have cashed out at a few stages before this.
The force huddle.
How good's that? Almost a blessing in disguise, you could argue. But 9 billion, so pretty considerable amounts.
Yep.
And then the last thing I want to touch on that's a little bit more sort of not talked about as much as the previous 2 points is Bitcoin miners selling off. So there's a bit to unpack here. So miners tend to build up a bit of a treasury during the good times to kind of, maintain them when things aren't so good. And so the good times for miners are a bit different from the good times for us who are, traders and investors of Bitcoin. So essentially, miners, a lot of their revenue is made from the issuance of new Bitcoin that is, created and then is given to them because of the process of mining. But obviously, we had the Bitcoin halving recently, which resulted in their revenue essentially getting cut in half. They get fees as well, but the majority of their revenue does come from that issuance. And so often after halving, you will start to see miners sell off some of their Bitcoin to sort of stay afloat. As you can see from this chart up here, that orange part is issuance in BTC, and then you can see the issuance in USD. And after each halving, it seems to drop quite considerably, obviously because they're getting less and less Bitcoin every time. And so, there's the selling off pressure from the miners, there's selling off pressure from Mt. Gox, and then also outflows from the ETFs. So is there anything to add there that could be the reason for this, below 60K mark?
I was reading up a story. Obviously the Euros are on at the moment and there's a lot of hype around some of the soccer teams and that's absolutely unrelated. But Germany previously seized about 3 billion as of today's numbers on Bitcoin from a movie piracy website, and they've started selling off some Bitcoin as well. It's actually, I think we might have a link to the actual dashboard. I don't know if you have it or not, Ted, but we had a link to the dashboard that actually shows you the German government treasury of Bitcoin. But essentially, they've started selling off and they've sold 195 mil worth of Bitcoin in the last that's the one in the last week. So interesting to see. Governments. I wish we had a dashboard like this for all governments. It'd be pretty interesting to see what the US one looks like against this and some of the larger geos.
It'd be good to see Australia punching above its weight.
Just zero, sitting on zero, you reckon?
No, they've definitely got some
Bitcoin.
They've 100% seized some Bitcoin from some illegal operations.
Yeah, true.
I don't know who controls that, but I know just the man for it. I think it might be yourself, Tommy.
Oh, I wouldn't mind the job. Just sit there controlling one wallet. That'd be pretty cool. But as you mentioned at the start, dropping below 60K for the first time in I think about 4 or 5 weeks. We had been seeing a lot of chopping market for Bitcoin between 62, 66, 67K. Next support level I'm looking at on the charts is around 52K US. So if we lose that, and I'll Pavlov's give you the bear and bull case. I think we've had a bull case for some time now. I think if we do lose 50K, say 50K support, I had it at 52 on the charts, but we lose 50K support, we could be going back to early 40s, 42, 44. I would love that to happen, if I'm honest. I think it would be a very responsible and reasonable market kind of test or flush before we start to get back into bull market territory and that narrative starts to rebuild. I was looking at fear and greed this morning as well. Fear and greed I think was touching on about 50, so we're dead center neutral of the market in terms of sentiment at the moment. So that's we're in a really interesting time right now. A lot of people are expecting a bull market to kick off kind of any day or any week at the moment. Generally we get surprises in this market. We've always dealt with it. I think it could be a bit more extended this cycle. If you ask me why I think that, I wouldn't be able to give you a clear answer. But it just feels like we have a bit more momentum to build up before we spring. Talking about Ethereum, I mean we've touched on kind of Ethereum and the whole narrative around the Ethereum ETF. there is an expectation now, 50% from the analysts from Bloomberg are saying that Ethereum, that ETF, that first spot ETF will launch with 50% confidence at the moment, which is again 50-50 in the middle, on the 2nd of July.
So what's that? That's next week.
So that's next week. So that's next Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
Our time. So yeah, I mean, just thinking about that. I know you asked the question earlier, like, what direction do we think Ethereum might go on the spot ETF? I think there'll be a lot of interest in buying Ethereum. I think that Ethereum ETF is going to be a lucrative product.
Yep.
And I think the demand for it is really going to be in line with what the market's doing. If there's significant value identified in Ethereum, like they were talking about Ethereum being good value at $4,000. So let's say if the market continues on this trajectory and we go sub 3K, it's at 3,250 roughly at the time of recording. I mean, that just for me represent value. And the whole Bitcoin versus Ethereum play is like your Apple. This is one of the analogies I've heard used, like Bitcoin is your gold, your store of value, long-term wealth builder type of asset, hard asset, limited supply, etc. Ethereum is your like supercomputer, your app store. Which I like the actually analogy to the app store. Like everyone kind of knows you go onto an app store, you can get multiple products, multiple different features and different things. So yeah, I actually like that as like an analogy, and it's like it's a pure technology play for a lot of these, you know, institutional investors. They're going to want diversity. They want diversity of all assets that they ever invest in. So you know, they're not going to just happy with, all right, I've got some Bitcoin now. Yes, some of the more conservative investors will be happy with that for a period of time, but they are going to start to look outside. Ethereum obviously is the next one coming. Then you think about what's the next ETF. I know that conversation has already started to fester. Starts with an S and ends with an Olana. Was one of the ones that were mentioned.
What could that be?
Again, I'm not speaking about any asset specifically here, as you know. But like it's, that narrative is starting to build as well. And I think product and asset diversity is just something that every market has had for forever. As we move into regulated markets, all these products are just going to sit side by side. I think there will be a limited amount that will make it. But I think that's just where it's going. And long term, obviously bullish as always. Long term bullish. Short term now, I think we may have a bit of difficult kind of a period to get through up until that bull market spring. But the harder it is now, the more explosive, in my opinion, that spring could be when we actually do hit the period. So in terms of my own strategy, I am in accumulation mode, and I have been for you know, quite some time. So
I do quite like periods like this where, you know, you see that fear and greed meter start to drop. You're like, okay, everyone's starting to get a little bit uncertain about what's going on, and I always see that as a good opportunity to dollar cost average as part of my wider strategy. So
when sentiment is low, when nobody cares about it anymore, like think about how everyone was feeling 18 months ago when Bitcoin was down at like say 20 grand. Look at the opportunity from all of the assets, that the growth we've seen in that 18 months. We didn't feel like we're in like a bull market. We feel like we're just coming out of a bear market. But that's been huge growth, right? From that huge 20K and then all the other assets surrounding it.
It's been a massive. People get in it at the time.
That's right, because people they're too scared, or they're like, oh no, I'm bored with that asset class now. That's when you're buying. Like those big red days, that's when my wallet opens. And I think that's when, you know, a lot of people will trade on the contrary. They're waiting for it to be up 10%, 20%, depending on what asset. The people that actually make it long term, from what I've seen and what I think a lot of us expect, are the people that are actually have that conviction across those assets in the times where, you know, the interest is low. So
couldn't agree more.
Excited.
Couldn't agree more. I just want to call out, this is news that literally came in probably half an hour ago. Julian Assange has entered a plea deal with the US to be released and could be returning to Australia soon. Not really a crypto story, but
it is. I think it is.
Do you reckon he's Satoshi?
No, I don't. Putting words in my mouth. But I think it's the Assange story has always tied in closely with crypto ethos and like the whole financial freedom and for freedom in general, I suppose.
And we've also talked about this year how the US election's playing a key role in the market because Trump has come out in support. Biden's typically the more negative of the two when it comes to crypto. Sure. This could be Biden's way of buying voters because he's offering Assange this sort of plea deal. It's interesting times. I think
that's a huge story.
Assange stuff is so interesting. If you haven't looked into it, I would 100% look into it because
I know we're kind of peppering it in here pretty late, but it's more of a FYI. Go and check it out. I'm keen to actually after the podcast go and read what's happening there. To be honest, but absolutely huge.
But we've got top movers to cover, Tommy.
Let's go.
So this week, another sea of red, to be honest, with a few green speckled in there. The main key ones to call out here are Fetch.ai and Ajax, two AI projects. You've got a bit of insight on the back of that?
Yes. So we're a pretty large scale token merge is happening. I know we've got something on screen there to refer to. Swyftx will be supporting the token merge, but TLDR for people listening. AGIX, FET, and Ocean protocol are merging into one token that will be renamed to ASI, Artificial Superintelligence.
Good name.
Strong play.
Yeah.
Very strong. Essentially those three projects are going to merge. There has been a bit of an update on the initial comms that came out for this, which we did send out to Swyftx users. Basically, AGIX and Ocean will now be converted into FET originally, and then FET will be renamed. So cool. Net the same outcome, but essentially FET will be the asset that they convert to first, and then it'll be renamed to ASI. So, look, it's exciting. There's about 5.5 billion of combined market cap value across those assets. So actually what I might do very, very quickly, I know we're live recording, Ted, but I did want to look at where that sits in the overall positioning in the market cap. And I think that brings that asset group up to top 20.
Yeah.
So it's a big move. AI narrative is obviously something that's, thriving at the moment with all the products that are coming out, ChatGPT and everything from Twitter and Google. Everyone's having a crack at the AI narrative at the moment. What's going to happen to the token? What do you think?
Look, there's a few ways to look at this. Obviously, you mentioned there combining the market cap is going to bring it to top 20. Yep. So when the bigger the market cap, the harder it gets to sort of make those major plays. Like Bitcoin, you'll never really see it move more than 10-15% these days. Whereas some of the smaller altcoins you see doing
50 in a day and
even more, 100%, 200% in a day.
Trying to be conservative here, mate.
Yeah. But I think in terms of the token, it's a positive news for the project itself because these guys have come together. They were previously competitors, but they've come together to basically create this entirely decentralized AI bot. So I think their goal is to have basically make it fully decentralized because they've kind of noted that in their current forms they're not decentralized, and for AI in its current form, where it's controlling a lot of data, it's actually making a lot of decisions in our everyday lives. It needs to be something that we as people can have a say in, not just the people that control it. So I think overall it's a strong play. Where it goes from here, I don't know. I think these guys were sort of the key players in that middleware sort of sector of the AI sector itself. Yeah. You've got other parts of AI, you've got the storage, then you've got the layer ones that support the AI. So there's different ways to get exposure to the AI sector in crypto. Yeah. But these guys dominate that middleware, and by combining, it's going to be a strong play. Not financial advice, obviously, but I think overall it's positive for the crypto sector.
They've seen the reason they're in the top movers now is likely that people are kind of buying the rumor and sell the news type of thing. We talk about it quite a lot. So the actual token merge event itself on July 1st, could be a non-event. I mean, again, nobody knows what's going to happen, but they're definitely seeing some strong trading, on the buy side up to the event happening. So if you are impacted, what I mean by that is if you hold any AGIX tokens or Ocean tokens, you want to get them like offline, you want to get them deposited to Swyftx, so you'll be eligible for the token merge snapshot on July 1st. So
Absolutely.
bit of call to action for people if you are holding them elsewhere, that you get them on there, or else you might miss out on the actual token merge and redenomination to FET. So
yeah, good call out there, Tommy. And then in the other top movers, the other narrative I'm seeing is real world assets. So Ondo and Pendle are two of the other like few assets in the green in the last 7 days. So Ondo's a bit of a market leader when it comes to real world asset or tokenization of real world assets. Pendle's also a strong player in that space as well. So good to see they're maintaining their value in amongst all the red. That's one of my key narratives for this upcoming cycle. I think it's going to have a really strong play there, especially with BlackRock having a big focus on that and launching their own not crypto exchange, stock exchange. To rival the likes of the New York Stock Exchange. So interesting space to watch. But look, let's move on. So Pav's not here for a second week in a row, and this is a new segment. This is a segment I introduced last week, and because he's not here, I'm going to double down and chuck it in again. So this might be the last time you hear it, or it might be a continuation in the weeks to come, depending on what Pav says, because Pav is the boss essentially.
You're breaking all the rules you can bend, Ted. That's the comment my dad would use. Yeah,
well, I feel like I'm a free man these days. I'm not shackled by Pav's rules anymore. I'm joking. Pav's a good guy. But look, Miles Deutscher, I should say, is an Australian analyst. He's really good. So if you haven't checked him out, go and check him out on Twitter or YouTube. But he's got a good breakdown of sort of why altcoins are underperforming in this market. And it's a long thread, so I've just got a few notes that I want to kind of touch on, because it's not my thoughts initially, but I agree with him 100% on most of them. So we've seen Bitcoin do great on the back of the halving and mainly the ETFs, right? But altcoins haven't done as well as what we thought we'd see so far. So a few reasons there being, there are 5 times as many crypto tokens compared to peak bull run in 2021. Remember last bull run on the Binance Smart Chain, there were just heaps of new tokens launching. Everyone was promising to be the next big thing. But there's 5 times as many now. And there's about $150 million to $200 million in token unlocks being unlocked every day. So that's not new projects entering the market. That's existing tokens like the likes of Arbitrum, Sui, unlocking new tokens, which is creating a bit of a supply issue. Because there's new tokens, which is more supply, more sort of choice for retail investors, and there's new supply for the tokens that are already existing, which, as we know...
1-2 punch.
Yes, exactly. And as we know, the price is dependent on supply and demand, and with higher supply, it makes it harder for price to move in the right direction. So now we find ourselves in a situation of having not enough liquidity entering the market and an insane amount of sell pressure from the unlocks. So the ways that this needs to turn around, and what Miles really touched on here was we need more liquid funds entering the market, and that doesn't mean venture capital funds. So venture capitals are investing in projects that haven't really launched yet. It's like a private investment option. So it's not available to the public market like you and I. These are companies that get in early, and then after the token unlocks, they basically sell off once they've done their 50x, which makes it harder for guys like you and I to do, those 10, 50, 100x, because the VCs are getting those and then they're selling off, which makes it a bit more unattractive for us retail investors, or all retail investors in general.
Does that mean the Solana meme coin play is the purest community play?
Oh God, don't make me say it.
For the people, by the people kind of scenario?
Look, you could make that argument. Because it's like you're not up against these big institutions. It's kind of like when you're investing in stocks, and if you're buying GameStop, you're up against these big hedge funds that are shorting the market, and that's right. what happened with that short squeeze. And it was like, we got to win against these hedge funds. So maybe a bit of a comparison to be made there, Tommy.
I don't mind it, sir. Do not mind it.
That's it. We got to jump into the news headlines. So some key news headlines here. What shall we start with? I think we'll start with this Ethereum story, because we almost didn't cover it, but you mentioned it's very important. So did you want to...
You almost dropped the ball on it, basically.
You could argue that. Thanks for calling it out.
Yeah, look, again, TLDR on this one is... Ethereum has had an impending kind of US a case with the SEC outstanding for a long period of time. Basically, they were trying to deem ETH as a security. Gary Gensler called it a security in one setting, and then in another setting he called it a commodity, and there's been a bit of over and back about how it was going to be classified for some time. This is the line in the sand moment. So the SEC ends their investigation into Ethereum 2.0 and says no further legal action will be taken. So it's a big win. It's a really big win. It's a huge news story. I think the whole is my crypto asset or is my digital asset a security conversation is one we're going to hear more and more about as regulations kind of flesh themselves out in different geographies. It's definitely one, I think, in Australia. It's a part of the conversation we're going to be dealing with over the next, 12 to 24 months in Australia as well. But I think for Ethereum and holders of Ethereum, it takes away some uncertainty. And the market hates uncertainty. So I think it is it's a big win. Obviously, because of where we're at in the market right now, I don't think the price has impacted as much. If we were in bullish territory, I feel like that would have been a catalyst for a pretty significant move to the north side. I think it's great to get clarity pre-ETF launch on this as well, because it gives those institutional investors, I guess, if there was a chip on the shoulder around Ethereum, whether I should invest in it or not, maybe that affects their strategy overall, knowing that it's now, going to potentially classified as a commodity, like similar to Bitcoin in terms of its treatment and classification. So I think it's a big story. There's a lot more details around it I think people probably don't care about, to be honest. But if you are an Ethereum holder, it's good news long term.
Absolutely. Good breakdown. What else have we got? We've got Standard Chartered. So Standard Chartered are they US or UK based
global
bank?
They're global bank.
I think they're top 50, but they've essentially launched spot crypto trading for institutional clients, which is massive because they're one of the first institutions to do so. Standard Chartered, this isn't their first sort of dipping their toe into crypto, because they're always coming out, like their analysts always coming out with predictions for Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I really like, because a lot of these institutions are, when it comes to crypto, they're quite negative. They're starting to sway the other way, but Standard Chartered are like bang, that they understand the demand and also like clearly by this new offering, but they put themselves out there. They make these bold predictions of where Bitcoin will go in 2024, 2025, and also Ethereum. And I really like that from them. So I think this is a good story for crypto as a whole, the fact that they're offering spot crypto trading. Yeah,
they invested in a company called Zodia as well. For it's like basically a separate business, their ventures arm. Invested in a company called Zodia for custody. So they're essentially making multiple plays from different areas of the market that they see. But yeah, I agree. It's a good news story. Standard Chartered, big player in the banking space. I think, not to say that this is the tip of the iceberg or the start of a movement, but you're going to see this more and more play out over the next 5 years. This is going to be like a regular story. Like month on month, we're going to see a bank has came out. First, the conservative ones will say, "Oh, we're going to custody Bitcoin," like similar to like Combank did with, a few years ago. That's like the vanilla. Dip the toe in the water. We'll custody it at least. We'll set up a team of 5 people and say they'd be custodying assets as an example. So I think this is something we're going to see more and more of. Good news long term for us, of course. We always love a good bullish story long term. But I think from a industry banking perspective, it's something that we have struggled with previously in the digital asset space overall. There's always been a weakness around, are you going to get banked? Are you going to get debanked? It's been a big problem in Australia for certain businesses. Like this is a big hard topic, boring one maybe you could say, but yeah, long term, really good news story, and great to see Standard Chartered flying the flag for us.
Let's go. And lastly, I feel like we cover this basically every week these days, but MicroStrategy has bought more Bitcoin. Tell me, what do you got for us there?
Yep, 786 mil US worth of Bitcoin last week, so he probably should have waited till this week to do it. I did text him about it. Said that when we drop the podcast, that it's likely that you'll get it for 10% cheaper, but left me on red, and this is what you get, Michael. So
that's weird.
TLDR again, 786 mil more. They now hold around $14.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. their total market cap is 24 billion. So
as a stock, as a company,
the company's market cap is 24 billion. 14.5 of that value, you could argue, is held in Bitcoin. So that's why MicroStrategy stock tracks so closely with Bitcoin. I kind of actually think about a MicroStrategy investment as like almost like a Bitcoin ETF or like a crypto industry ETF a little bit, similar to Coinbase. I think about Coinbase the same way.
Like
you kind of get
indirect exposure.
Indirect exposure, but like MicroStrategy has outperformed Bitcoin.
Really?
Over 3 years or something like that. Sold off super hard, obviously, when the market went to shit. But MicroStrategy has outperformed Bitcoin over any of the charts that you look at over the last 3 years. MicroStrategy stock has outperformed. So
and they've now got over 1% of supply. So that's going to really play in their favor, because Bitcoin's not going to be as easy to access in a few years as it is currently, or it was a few years ago, because it's such a scarce asset. And the fact that MicroStrategy owns over 1%, and they're looking to get more and more, do you think it's going to come to a stage where you own too much and this isn't even decentralized anymore?
No. Not at like 1%. No, I think like you look at the ETFs. The ETFs will hold soon 10%. All the ETFs. So I'm not worried about like one single entity or company holding it. I think key to note is 36,000. Call it 800 is their average buy price. So what's the price today? Say call it 60
grand.
So they're less than double their money on their Bitcoin investments. So it's pretty. It's been a good player for them
after it's dipped. So
it's put them on the map as a company as well, right?
Well, they were a failing tech company.
That's right.
The only reason that they turned around and stayed afloat was because he basically said our strategy is now Bitcoin.
Insane. It's insane. It kind of just asks the question about like more companies are doing it, not on the scale that he is, because he started it early, but what's the next kind of big name that comes out and gets fleshed out in this space? And I think probably one of the leading indicators or catalysts that we will see in future, hopefully far into the future, is MicroStrategy have started selling Bitcoin. And that's the one that we haven't. He says he's never going to sell, but he's also not going to be around forever. The business might outlast him. He's about 60, I want to say, in or around 60 years of age. So I think it's an interesting one to watch, and I'd love to know how MicroStrategy get these buyback or these loans for 2% when we have to pay 7% just to get 400 square meters of land in Brisbane. So I was like,
you
what's
know
going
better
on?
than I do, but that's maybe give him a text.
I'll give him a text. I did tell you earlier about the meme I was looking at the weekend of the lady sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine. Just the caption on it was like, enjoying your mortgage every weekend as opposed to going out living your life. But fun times.
Exactly.
Slight teary face, but we're okay.
That's one for all the people with mortgages. I can't really relate to that, but
one day you will.
That's it. All my money's tied up.
We can take that one offline.
We might have to. Alrighty, well, we might leave it there, Tommy. Thanks so much for jumping on board, and we hope to see you again soon. But we know that you're as flaky as they come. And I'm joking. I'm joking. That is rough. Tommy's always there when we need him. And
I said when things go to shit, wheel me out, and we'll try and save it. That's the game.
Yeah, well, when we try to take the podcast to market and try and sell it, then you'll get a big stake, don't you worry? Because you've been here from the ground up.
That's right. Well, we don't need to get into that now, but yes, I have been here since the ground.
Just want to highlight that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not looking to sell the podcast, don't worry. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
See you guys. Thank you.